our online class coordinator. And today, Hayley and I will be taking you through some of our signature stitches, specifically the star cluster stitch, which is featured on the Newberry hooded cowl along the edges here. And it's also featured in the Chelsea mitts. We'll also be talking about the bamboo stitch, which is featured in our no-ho hat. And then we'll be talking about my new favorite stitch, the herringbone stitch, which is in the Westchester headband and also in a great herringbone blanket pattern that we have that we're getting ready to re-release in this great time to make blankets and homeware. I'm calling in from our studio in the South End. Even though we are closed, we're still doing curbside pickup, we're still doing delivery. If you're in the neighborhood or even if you're not, I have been known to bring yarn to people's homes, so don't be afraid to ask. We know knitting is something that is calming and comforting and helpful during this time, so please don't be ashamed. We want to get you yarn, we want to help you. So Hayley, did I miss anything in my intro? Oh, the other thing is, if you missed it, we are recording this class so we can send it out to you after. We only have videos at the moment on the star cluster stitch, so it'll be great for you to have a documentation of the herringbone stitch and of the bamboo stitch, but the recording only captures the speaker, so we're going to keep you all on mute for the class so that it will only be videoing me or Hayley or Kate. If you do have a question or a comment or anything, you can throw it in the chat. Kate is monitoring the chat and will report to Hayley and I. We'll do our best to answer everybody's questions. And if for some reason you still have more questions after the fact, send us an email, hello@thirdpiece.com, or however else you've communicated with us in the past. If you reach any of our team members, we'll make sure to help you. Hayley, did I miss anything in my beautiful introduction?
No, it was beautiful, every bit of it.
Thank you so much. So I'm actually going to start with the star cluster stitch because we're going to show it two different ways. We're going to show it on straight needle, and we're going to show it in the round. So the star cluster stitch you could cast on, if you're doing it on straight needles, you could just try casting on 13 stitches any way you want. The star cluster stitch is done, as I said, on the Newberry cowl and also on the Chelsea mitts. It creates this really lovely bunch, kind of. It's almost like a bamboo stitch. It's almost like a lacy stitch. It's kind of a beautiful combination of all of it. And when it's done on the cowl, we do it in the round. But when we do it on the hood, we do it flat. So I'm going to actually show it flat to start, because if you understand the conventions of it when you're working it on straight needles, doing it in the round will be very easy. And the video we have on our YouTube channel for the star cluster stitch shows both straight needles and circular needles. So that's really helpful. You can see I did it once here already on our beautiful spruce and funky chunky. Well, soft chunky, formerly funky chunky. So the first thing we do is we knit the first stitch just to help create an edge. And then I'm gonna knit two together. Just regular old knit two together. Let's see. I'm going to put the camera behind me so you all can, it's like you're looking over my shoulder here. So then I'm going to knit two together. We know a knit two together is a decrease, right? But we don't actually want to get fewer stitches. We want to replace those stitches that we're decreasing. So we're going to yarn over twice. 1, 2. Then I'm going to hold the yarn to the back. So I've added 2 little loops onto my needle. And now I'm holding the yarn in the back. And then I'm going to knit 2 together, but through the back loop this time. So typically when I knit, I go into the front left side of these 2 stitches. But now I'm going to go into the back right side of the 2 stitches, crossing my needles in the back, and knitting those 2 together. Knitting through the back loop or utilizing the back loop of the stitch is something that's going to come in handy later when we do the herringbone stitch. So now you can see, if we ignore my setup stitch here, I did a knit 2 together, replaced it with a yarn over, added another yarn over, and then knit 2 together again. Lovely. So we can do that. Again, I'm gonna knit 2 together regularly. Pull it off my needles. Yarn over twice, 1, 2, so I have 2 loops. Knit 2 together through the back loop. And now I can pull that off. And you can see I combined my stitches here, replaced, knit 2 together through the back loop. And just so you understand, knitting through the back loop creates a left-leaning decrease instead of a right-leaning decrease. So it just gives it a little more decoration, a little more direction. And then I'm just gonna knit the last 2 stitches normally. Beautiful. What I'm doing on the edge here by having these 2 stockinette work stitches is that I'm giving myself a place to attach the rest of the hood in the context of the Newberry. So that's just why there's 1 stitch on one side and 2 stitches on the other. The side with 2 stitches is giving you what we call a sleevage row or an extra row so that you can work that. Now, that was the right side, working it flat. Yeah. Now, I'm gonna work the wrong side. So I'm gonna start by purling 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3. And I should hit my first yarn over. I'm gonna purl that yarn over like it's a regular old stitch, which is gonna create a beautiful, purposeful, lacy gap. I'm at my second yarn over. I'm gonna purl that one through the back loop. I can't really purl it through the front. It's too much of a gap. If I turn it this way, this is what you should look at. Not really anything to purl there. So you can purl it just through the back loop instead of through the front loop. Holding the yarn in front, wrapping it around that back needle. And now I have a really beautiful, purposeful, lacy hole. And now in the pattern of the Newberry, we notate this, it's a CS, that means cluster stitch. So to do the cluster stitch, I'm just going to kind of give these 2 purl stitches a little bit of a hug using my yarn. I bring the yarn to the front. Oop, oop, oop. There we go, you can see it there. I'm gonna pass these 2 stitches without knitting or purling them, without working them. And whenever I pass stitches, unless it notes otherwise, I'm gonna do it as if I'm purling. Now I have this working yarn, I'm gonna wrap it around those 2 stitches, giving it a hug. Bum, bum. Making sure you can see it, nice. Now I'm gonna bring those 2 stitches back to my left needle, pass my working yarn back through, pass those 2 stitches around again, wrap it again. So I'm giving a nice hug to these 2 stitches. Nice, but now my yarn is in front. Hold the yarn in front, boom, boom, boom. There we go. So what I did is I created a nice little lubby stitch right there. Nice. Now I have this yarn over again. I can purl into in the regular way, purl into from the back. And then I have my 2 leftover setup stitches to purl. Nice. Awesome. So you can kind of see here what we're starting to set up, which are these little clustered, huggy moments. There we go.
Alex, can you move it over a little bit to the left? Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're
so you
welcome.
can see it better.
Nice. So then we're starting to set up these little clustery moments. So it's made up of combining stitches, yarning over, combining stitches. So those are all very familiar motions, but the thing that makes this kind of new is the cluster stitch itself. So to show it in the round, I'm at the end of a row. So what I've been doing is going around and doing the combining knit two together through the back loop, and then adding these yarn overs in between. So I have a couple of those left I can show this way. So I just did a knit two together through the back loop. So now I'm gonna knit two together, nice and normal, down, up, and off. Yarn over twice, 1, 2. I'm gonna knit two together through the back loop. I'm on a very small cord. Very good, and then I yarn over twice, yarn over, and I can knit two together regularly. I got a nice tight cast on, which you won't have because y'all are much more intelligent. Awesome. I get it off the needle through the back loop, and knitting through the back loop is often tighter, especially off of a cast on. So you can see in the round, there's my stitch marker. You can see in the round you get this series of combined stitches, 2 yarn overs. Combined stitches, 2 yarn overs, combined stitches, 2 yarn overs. So combine, combine, 2 yarn overs. So you should have 2 combined stitches next to each other with yarn overs in between. And now you're gonna wrap those cluster stitches again. But when you do it in the round, you're doing everything from the right side. So you don't need to, you wrap it a little bit differently. So here, for example, I'll slip my stitch here so that we're good to go. Here, for example, I have my 2 combined stitches. I bring the yarn to the front. There's the slip. I slip it purlwise, as always. I wrap it around to give it a hug. I slip those 2 stitches back past the point, go back again. So I'm just sliding these stitches back and forth, and I'm just continually wrapping to make these hugs and these this little cluster. And then I'm at the yarn over. So in the round, I'm gonna knit regular and then knit through the back loop instead of purl through the back loop because I'm working on the right side instead of alternating the back side. And I'll show the cluster one more time. I bring the yarn to the front, slip the next 2 stitches purlwise, slip, slip, wrap the yarn to the back. I gave it its first little hug. Slip the stitches back to the left needle, bring the yarn to the front, slip the stitches back to the right needle, give them a hug. So these stitches don't actually get worked. They just get passed and hugged. Passed and hugged. So I know that was like a down and dirty fast. I wanted to show it on the straight needles and on the circular needles. We started with that one because we have a really great video of it on our YouTube. So this is really, that was just kind of a great introduction to it. But if you have any questions about it, please let us know. But also know that that of the 3 stitches is the one that we have the clearest video of available to you all on our YouTube channel. But if you have any questions, you can throw those in the chat and Kate will report them back. Otherwise, Hayley is gonna show us the bamboo stitch, right, Hayley? See if you say.
Yes. Awesome. Sorry. Sometimes I can't unmute. So we're gonna talk about the bamboo stitch. It goes in our NoHo hat. When we work the bamboo stitch, we are knitting it in the round, but I have it set up 2 ways for you guys. I have it set up in the round and then also on straight needles. So if anyone wants to follow along, well, I'm gonna show the round first and then we'll go to the straight. But whoever wants to follow along, if you wanna just cast on like 6 stitches onto your needle, that way you can do it with me. So let me just move my camera. Okay, so The bamboo stitch is composed of 2 rounds. The first one being the knit stitch all the way around. The second one is the actual bamboo stitch, but the two combined is what kind of creates the pattern. So I have my double pointed needle set up. This is how we knit the NoHo, always on double points. It is how it shapes so nicely. I've cast on and I've already knit my first row of stitches, so we can get right into the bamboo stitch. The first stitch in the pattern is going to say yarn over. So something that tripped me up the first time I did this was I was like, how do I yarn over onto an empty needle? So the way you're going to do it is you're going to set up your double pointed needle in the middle of these 2 double pointed needles. And then I'm going to take my yarn and I'm going to wrap it around the back once and then wrap it around one more time. So it kind of locks it in. So we have our yarn over. We're going to purl 2 stitches. So purl 1, purl 2. Great. Now, for the next move, what we need to do is we need to take this yarn over and wrap it around the 2 stitches. So very similar to how you bind off. We come into the front of that yarn over and we bring it up and over and wrap over the 2 stitches. So you can see it kind of like creates a little hug like Alex was talking about on the star cluster stitch. So from there, we bring our yarn to the front again. We wrap it around to create a yarn over. One thing that always trips people up with a yarn over, if you're doing a yarn over knitwise, all you have to do is bring it to the front, and then when you go into knit, it automatically creates a yarn over. When you're doing a yarn over with a purl, you do have to wrap your yarn. It's already in the front, so you have to wrap your yarn around the back of the needle. So something to kind of point out there. So we wrap our yarn again, yarn over around the back of the needle, purl 2 stitches, and then we take that yarn over and bring it up and over. So we do that for the entire round. The NoHo calls for 12 stitches on each needle. And then when we get to the end, we kind of wrap the yarn similar to how we did in the front. So let me get there for you guys. The great thing about the bamboo stitch is you'll know that you've made a mistake if on your bamboo stitch row, all of your stitches are not paired together. So if you cast on too many, or maybe you dropped a stitch, you'll find when you get to one of the last rows on your needles, if it doesn't have a pair to go with, then probably did something along the way. So this is what it's going to look like. So now I have an empty needle. Again, I'm going to place it in between my 2 needles for the next row, and I'm going to wrap it 2 times and tug so it kind of pulls in. And then I start again. So I purl 2 and hop that yarn over. So that's a knit in the round. If you are practicing with us on straight needles, it's a very similar way of doing it. So from here, you'll take your needle, maybe put it behind and wrap it 2 times. So that way it hugs the needle. So that way your stitch is kind of locked in. And then we'll go in and we'll purl 1, purl 2, and pass the yarn over the purl stitch. Yarn over again. It might look a little different when you guys are practicing because we don't really use the bamboo stitch straight. But I know some people like to practice stitches before they start a project. So this is a good way of practicing the movement. So once you're done with the bamboo stitch, you just go right back and you knit all the stitches on the other side. So it's always knit and then bamboo stitch So now on this side, just to show you guys, we'll knit. And that is how you do the bamboo stitch. Does anyone have any questions on that stitch? Cool. Awesome.
Cool. Awesome. So we also, it looks like wrapping the yarn twice. Okay, Gail asked something. Can you read that out to us?
So wrapping the yarn twice, I'm getting 2 stitches. So Gail, when you wrap, you're only wrapping the yarn twice when it's the start of a new needle to lock the stitch in. When you're doing the bamboo stitch here, your yarn's already in the front. So you're just bringing it around the back again. So that way, because you have to create 1 new stitch. So it looks like your yarn's in the front. You wrap it around the back to create a little loop, a new stitch, and then you purl. If you're knitting, then you might get 2 stitches, but with that move, you should only get 1 stitch. So it looks like that.
She's saying, she said it's the starting wrap, so she discovered that too.
Okay, awesome.
Awesome. Thanks. And like I said, it looks like we're gonna have some time at the end where we can maybe either stop recording and take folks off mute to answer questions, but we're really cruising along, which I appreciate. The final signature stitch we're really excited to share with you, and I have to be honest, I did not start doing until this weekend, and I'm already in love with it, is the herringbone stitch. So let me turn down my YouTube influencer light so we can see it. I'm getting like a fun mix of sunlight. It's a herringbone stitch, which creates this beautiful crisscross pattern, and it's I think you can kind of see it's really thick because of the way you're working it. It creates a really thick, beautiful, snuggly pattern. So it's perfect for headbands. So we have the Westchester headband, which is this one. I even think the wrong side of it is really pretty. It's kind of like a thick, advanced looking wrong side of stockinette stitch. We also have a wonderful blanket pattern. And if you didn't catch, we got in some new colors in soft chunky that we're really excited about, charcoal and sapphire. We also are all, we're back in stock with almond, frost, and sugar in the soft chunky. And we were all talking as a team about how beautiful homewares would be in those colors. I think the herringbone blanket would be beautiful in sapphire. The herringbone pillow pattern, which I believe we have, would be beautiful in that color as well. So don't rule that out. But I started it here. Can we see the sapphire? Sure, Tara. I'll definitely grab some and show it at the end. I have the herringbone headband going here. It's called the Westchester. I'm doing it in periwinkle. The Westchester specifically calls for a provisional cast on. So I did a crochet provisional cast on in scrap yarn. That's going to allow me later to pull this out and have live stitches on either side of my headband that I can then Kitchener together. So that's a great skill that also is required in the Newbury cowl. But if you know the crochet cast on, you just have to do it with scrap yarn and then you have a provisional cast on. So the herringbone stitches worked in 2 rows. I'm going to start with the wrong side row, which is the purl row. I have my pattern here just to make sure that I'm keeping myself honest. And I believe, let's see, I'm going to start with a slip 1. So I'm slipping the edge of the stitch, the edge of the row, just to create an even row of knit on the piece. But the actual pattern, the actual the actual herringbone stitch doesn't necessarily require that stitch to be slipped. It's just something that we have in our Westchester pattern. So I slip, and now I'm going to purl 2 together. Purl 2 together, nice and normal, but I'm not going to pull them off yet. I'm going to leave these 2 loops on my left needle, because now what I'm going to do is purl the first stitch again.
Hey, Alex, we can't really see you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Where you are right now is perfect. So if you could stay right there, that way,
Awesome.
because you keep moving off and then we can't see what you're doing. Thanks.
Sorry, I'm very wiggly. So I appreciate it. So I'm going to do that again. I purl the next 2 stitches together. And instead of pulling these 2 loops off the needle, I'm going to insert my right needle into that first purl stitch and purl it again. And now I'm ready to pull these 2 off because I have 2 more on my right needle and pull it off. I'm just going to continue that across all 13 of the stitches of the Westchester. Purl. Purl 2 together. But then I find it nice to like give it a little tug to make sure I have plenty of room. I use my thumb to kind of separate there, and then I can purl the next stitch. So purl 2 together. But don't pull it all the way off yet. Insert to the next single stitch. Purl that first stitch. Slide it off, last one. Purl 2 together. But I'm not done yet. I got to separate these 2. Purl. So that's the wrong side row. You can see it created a really lovely crissy-cross. Now I'm going to show the right side row. I again am going to slip the first stitch. Whenever it says slip a stitch, but it doesn't specify if it's knit or purl. Could we go over the slip again at the, sorry. Jenna, I saw your question and I'm going to do this row and then we'll get to it. So I have my right needle. I'm going to slip the first stitch. It doesn't specify, so I'm just going to slip it purlwise. And again, we slip the first stitch of every row on this pattern just so that we can create a nice even edge for the final product. Slip that purlwise, and now I'm ready to get into the right side of my herringbone pattern. I'm going to slip the next stitch, but this one is going to be slipped as if to knit. Then I'm just going to knit the second stitch normally. Now we're going to get fancy. As if I'm binding off, I'm going to pull the slip stitch up and over, but I'm not going to release it like it's a bind off. I'm going to hold onto it onto my left needle. Yeah.
Alex, move your hands down just a tiny bit.
Yeah.
Thanks. We're just seeing the cast on, not so much the stitch.
Oh, cool, cool, cool. And now I'm going to knit this yarn over through the back loop. I'll show that again because I know Hayley was saying. Hayley's my director, so she keeps me in focus. So I'm going to slip this next stitch knitwise, knit the next stitch normally, pass this slip stitch up and over the knitted stitch as if I'm binding off, but I'm not going to let go of it. Then I'm going to knit it through the back loop and off. And I keep doing that. Slip knitwise, knit. Pass it over like I'm binding off, but don't let it go. And here again, just like on the purl side, I like to give it a little bit of space so that I can clearly see that I'm going into the back loop, around, down, up, off. Now I can slip, knit one, carry it over. I got plenty of space. Knit it through the back loop, slip, knit one, carry it over, knit it through the back loop. One more time. I slip, knit one, carry the slip stitch over like I'm binding off, and then knit it through the back loop. And that creates a beautiful crisscross going in the other direction. So when it looks here, when you turn it vertically, you'll see that you're having crisscrosses go every direction. Ooh. So the herringbone stitch, you're constantly replacing the stitch you're getting rid of. You should have an equal amount of stitches the whole time. So when you purl two together, you're not pulling two stitches off. You're making sure you go into that first stitch. And when you slip a stitch, you're also knitting it again. So every stitch does get worked. It's just in kind of a funky order. If I know we moved kind of fast today, maybe there were issues with camera or sound, we're here to support you. We can always set up a 10-minute knit bar, review any of these things. So let us know how we can support you. But we have plenty of time to take some questions, or we'll be happy to, now that we've kind of bing, bang, boomed all 3 stitches, Hayley and I can show anything again upon request. But whatever's needed right now. I know Jenna asked a question. I didn't see what it was exactly.
She wanted to have you go over the slip stitch one more time.
At the beginning?
Yeah.
So the slip stitch at the beginning of the Westchester just creates a nice even carried row. So in a pattern, if it says SL1, it means slip 1. And if it doesn't specify that it's knitwise, it's implied or expected that you're slipping it purlwise. So when you slip a stitch purlwise, I'm just taking my right needle, going in and sliding it off without working it. And now I'm ready to work the next stitch in pattern. So here that would be purl 2 together, but not pull it off. Purl into the first stitch. Slide it off. Yeah. Awesome. Was there another question that I saw just come in?
Yes. How many stitches should you cast on for the last headband?
It's got, we have the pattern available online. So there are a few details beyond the pattern that I just went over. So it really depends on how thick you want your headband to be, but we do have that pattern available on our website. I know that didn't answer your question, but it is, let's see. The pattern recommends casting on 13, but if you're interested in the full pattern, there are some other details in there that I feel like are important. So let us know and we can find a way to get you the pattern, but 13. Any other questions, or can we show anything again? Any other questions? Not how much yarn does the headband need?
One ball.
One 200 gram ball.
One 200 gram ball.
And Tara wants to know if you could do one more quick run through of the star cluster.
Yes, we can. Are you interested in seeing it flat or in the round? And I just got a private message asking about provisional cast-on. So Hayley, do you mind talking about a provisional cast-on while I go grab the sapphire to show Tara and also set up another star cluster row?
Alex, I would prefer if you talk about the star cluster, those two things. Sorry.
No, I was asking you to talk about the provisional, just like explaining what a provisional cast-on is. Thank you.
Cool. So the provisional cast-on we use with a crochet hook, and kind of like the crochet cast-on with most of our hats, you cast on the stitches, and then we're knitting into the provisional cast on stitches. The reason why we do a provisional cast on is usually if we're doing a Kitchener stitch, which is putting 2 live seams together. If you guys want, we could definitely set up the provisional cast on for our next free workshop. That can be
that'd be fun.
For us.
Yeah, we could do a because we could do a casting on, binding off, like quick workshop, because we have our long tail cast on that we do. We have our crochet cast on, which we use as a provisional cast on. And Hayley just designed something that has a really cool bind off that I'm excited about. So there's some new stuff coming down the line. You're welcome, Barbara. Okay, so to talk about the star cluster stitch one more time. Star cluster stitch, to be clear, has 2 pattern rows. In the Newbury, it actually has 4 because we're creating this, I almost decapitated this head. It's creating a diamond shape. So the star clusters aren't worked directly on top of each other. So it's actually, even though the star cluster itself takes 2 pattern rows, we write it in 4 so that the clusters are offset from each other in a lovely little diamond. So just keeping that in mind. The first, you can think of it this way, the first row of a star cluster is combining and yarning over. And the second row of the star cluster is slipping and hugging. That's how I like to remember it. So if I look here, I'll work it flat to show it. So if you can do it flat, you can definitely do it in the round. I'm going to knit 1, then knit 2 together. So I'm on my combining and yarning over row. Knit 2 together. You're welcome, Jenna. Thank you for being here. Now I'm going to yarn over twice, knit 2 together through the back loop. Awesome. And now I'm ready to do that again. So I'm going to knit 2 together normally. Yarn over twice, then knit 2 together through the back loop. And now on this particular pattern row, means I have 3 stitches left, which is awesome. And I'm going to knit those. 1, 2, 3. So that was my first setup row where I have the combined stitches and the loops in between. And now, can I show what? Sorry, Tara.
Knitting in the back row.
The back row, yes. I'll show the back row right now. So now I'm going to purl 3. And I'm going to get to that first yarn over. When I get to the first yarn over, I'm just going to purl into it like it's a stitch, which is going to create a hole, which we want. We want like a lacy decorative hole. So I'm at that first yarn over. You can see I have my 2 yarn overs here. And I'm going to just purl into it normally. And then my next yarn over is kind of funky because it's wrapped the other way. So I'm going to purl into it through the back loop. Go down, up, off. Now I'm ready to cluster. I bring the yarn to, let's see, the back, slip the next 2 stitches, wrap it to the front. Pass those 2 stitches back, wrap it again. Pass those 2 stitches, bring it to the front. I have 2 hugs on the right side, and I'm at my next yarn over. So I can purl into it normally. Then I purl into the next one through the back loop. And you're good to continue in that manner. So the star cluster stitch, Tara, we have a great YouTube video on that covers it in the round and on flat needles. I know you're getting going on your first Newberry, and I'm so excited for you. I know you've been eyeing it for a while, so it's really cool to see how you've grown as a knitter. So I'm excited. Any other questions? The other thing, oh, thank you for putting that video in there. The other thing we're totally open to, like Hayley alluded to, we're going to be doing some more of these kind of free workshop style classes. If you haven't been able to take any of our classes yet, they're interactive. We're able to like critique as we go. In order to keep these classes accessible, we were really excited to be able to offer this workshop style, and we'll continue to do that. So let us know if there's another topic you want us to cover in a workshop. Can we have a beginner hat class? Ooh, that's a great idea. The Kendall makes a great beginner hat class, so we can look into that. Oh, the other thing I wanted to show was the new sapphire color, which I am in love with. I know Hayley's been playing with it too. It's definitely like a very deep midnight blue, but it's on the purple side of blue, which is so gosh darn pretty. I want a blanket, I want everything out of it. I want a blanket out of it. Is the herringbone blanket pattern on our website?
It is.
It is. The herringbone blanket pattern is on our website.
It's under knit kits.
Under knit
So
kits.
it's under a kit at the moment.
But if you, you're welcome, thank you. If you shoot us an email, we can help you with that order as well. So don't hesitate to jump in. Awesome. Thank you, Gail.
Yes.
Keep an eye out. Hayley and I will be going live on Instagram.